Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And we have completed boss battles. My scores aren't like super awesome compared to what is in there, but it's good enough for me. As long as I get my 600 crystals out of group ranking, we're gonna call it a day because I really don't like running this team. But we are here to take on Boss Battle 1, which has an 8-turn limit. It is a single target fight, not an AoE, which makes sense because we have no AoE earth nuking character for this meta. We have Rimuru and Leon, both single targets. The starting hand is 2 greens and an orange, so if you have Leon, he can convert any 3 orbs, so that'll work. And also, if you have to use Warrior's Mind Guy, that also works. And Guy is on a team that would give him extra damage against space as well. So they did kind of give people a bit of leniency here. Now, if you don't have either of those characters and you don't have a triple orb changer that can do this, you're kind of in a bad spot. But it's nice that they did make it so Guy could still be used effectively. As far as what Rain does, well, obviously she doesn't die. She nerfs blues. She has stun evasion for 7 turns, so on turn 8 you can stun her. Seals, synergy, and pierce rate, so you don't want to use those. Well, I mean, you could. You could naturally hit it, but because of this right here, synergy resist, pierce resistance, it's gonna cut your damage down to like 1. Like if you were doing 10 million damage, you'd do 1 damage, and it would be awful. You never want to synergy or pierce in these fights. And then she also nullifies status effects, and has a barrier, which means that you can't Reckoning. So, sorry about that. You also can't really do Vengeance, because Vengeance would also hit the barrier as well. So, they've nerfed the cheesy teams, and then she also nerfs oranges for a couple turns. So, I mean, we can still kind of do it, but it's not very fun. I don't think I put a team together that would take part of that. But otherwise, like, yeah, no synergy, no pierce, so you're relying on Aegis and crit, which is nice. Yeah, that's about it. So I mean, looking at the ranks, I'm upshift 1.7, so I'm right here. But 2 million, 3 million, these people have rock investment and dupes in their characters. I do not, and I'm not going to, so that's why there's such a difference in score right here. But let's go ahead and jump in. These teams take a while to do. Okay, so because these are stacking teams mostly, this video is going to take a while, so just timestamps are going to be down below. But this is my highest scoring team. It is the full Spirit Master team, but we are taking away Blanc and bringing in Prosper Rimuru, because you can crit this stage, and Rimuru does give Earth allies the crit and the crit resistance down debuff, which will be enhanced by Frostbite, and then everyone else is here for their, because it's the team. So, jumping in turn 1, it is built for that Leon or Guy orb change. Obviously, we're using Leon. So the idea here is that you get at least Leon and the new Rimuru, transforming Rimuru's ult for the nuke turn, and if you can get another support ult to nuke as well on that final turn, then great. But we use the orb change, we use the Lord's Ambition to give us that extra 2 orb change on the next turn, and sometimes you can get lucky and that will take care of everything, and then you only have blues. Not the case here. He'll change 2 of them, and there's still 2 more. So we can't do anything else except orb change again on this turn, so we have to bring Leon back in. Getting Rimuru's ult early is not really that important. In fact, you're going to get a lot of ults here. Because the hero is giving you 50% every turn, there's just really no way around it. We don't have an ult swapping character, so what you're going to end up doing is you're just going to send all the ults, using the Jean skill to help buff the ult gauges, or the ult orbs, so they can give you maximum protection and skill points and everything, and you will just send them over and over and over and over again. And then when you get to like turn 6 and turn 7, that's where you really need to make sure that you're getting the EX ult for both Rimuru and Leon. And Rimuru with his rainbow orbs and his transform state will definitely help out there. But let's continue to use Lord's Ambition. We don't need to use it every turn if you don't have the points. Yeah, you will miss out on that free orb change on the next hand, but the ult resistance down effect is going to stay for the entire time that Lord's Ambition is. So that's a 2-turn thing. So again, you don't need to use it every turn. We are going to get a few stacks of Frostbite. We actually can't use it more than like twice if we want to ensure we have enough points to actually nuke properly on turn 8, because this is a team just full of big-time high skill cost abilities. So you do have to be a bit aware of how many points you're actually going to have. And even though Prosper Rimuru does give you the 150, half of that is locked into his other skill, so he's only actually giving you like what is that math? He's cutting it in half essentially. So just be aware of that. If you can get support alts, then great. The barriers here, yeah, I mean, as long as you send the ult, you still get the weakness strike effect from it. But if you want to maximize your damage, make sure you send the normal orbs first and then the ult. Because even though Jeanne doesn't do a lot of damage because she's support ult, it will start to stack up because we're getting that ever-increasing magic attack from the masked hero. But I mean, that's it. This is a long, slow team, and all these runs are going to be really, really long, and I'm going to run out of things to talk about because we are just stacking for 8 turns. And there is quite a bit of skills to use here. It's not as bad as Sparkle of Youth or Divine General, but there is a lot of things to do here. So we got to orb change, we got to use the Jeanne skill, we got to use the Lord's Ambition from Rimuru, and at this point, with 4 turns left, now we want to start being aware of who's got an ult and who doesn't have an ult. So we're going to send these, and then next turn, with 3 turns left, that's when you will use, or you can use it now, like this, and you can just hold them in the back. Either way, this will get us the EX ult for Rimuru, and then he can go away, and then we can just hold on to his transformation and not have to worry about it running out, because if we used it now and left him up front, he would de-transform on turn 8, and you would lose that 300% weakness resistance down debuff, which is pretty impactful when you're running this team specifically. So, his EX ult is good. It is now 3 turns left, which is really just 2 playable turns before you nuke. He needs to go away. We need to get that Leon EX ult. And if we take Rimuru out, that's going to bring another Leon orb in, which is good. So, we're not going to use his Lord's Ambition skill anymore, because it's not going to work in the back. Yeah, like, we'll lose the orb change, but we have Leon, and we're probably going to have ults anyways, so it's not that big of a deal. We can just triple orb change out of it. But I don't actually want to send his ult here, because I'm not entirely sure I'm going to get it back. So we kind of have to gamble a little bit. So we look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So 5 orbs, 6 orbs. We do send his ult, because I'm banking on the gauge that we get plus the masked hero to get him back up to a reasonable spot. And we do get an ult for him, which is good. And then that kicks in, which means that the 7th turn right here, we cannot send his ult, because we're not going to make it back. So you're going to have to send 5 orbs here. But he has to stay up front, because he needs that masked hero ability. And he needs to send orbs. Like, either way, he has to be up front. So right here, you're kind of locked in. So the orb change, the Jeanne skill, and we're going to send 5 orbs. Not the greatest, we're not capped out on points, but it is still enough to nuke now. So hit, and hit, boom. We had to break the barrier first, that's why we held off on sending the ults. And now it's the final turn after she hits us. We have 403 skill points and 1 more stack of the hero. It's not the most perfect run, and because of how I built this, we're going to lose out on one of the weakness strike nuking characters, because I have to bring Prosper Rimuru in to buff Leon and the transforming Rimuru. So, let's go ahead and apply a few of the buffs. Again, we do have to remain a bit aware of what we're doing, because we have to spend 90 to get the 150, and then we have to spend the 80 with Prosper, and we still have to use the 50-point weakness resistance buff with transforming Rimuru. So here, instead of using both the Frostbite and the Leon skill, we can only use the Frostbite, and then we send both Velzard and Jeanne away. So if you're trying to min-max this and make this run a bit better, I would probably bring Prosper Rimuru up front on the previous turn, because he would get healed from the Masked Hero, so you wouldn't lose any of his crit debuff, which is good. But it would also make it so you can bring in one of the other support characters on the nuke, and she would do like 14 million damage, even on a support ult. It's just that she's not doing the 400 that we're about to do here. So there is all the buffs, the ult, the Aegis power, the element, the transformation gimmick, and the weakness down. And let's go ahead and send this. And Leon does 469 million. And then Rimuru with his extra 120% does 612 million damage. So we're over 1 billion. Great. Rimuru orb. And Leon unfortunately got synergied on 1 orb, so he did 1 damage. Like, insane. We went from 1 damage right there, because there was a pierce or a synergy in there somewhere. And then his 150% orb does, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 11 million damage. It's a wild number to go from 1 to 11 million. So that can be quite an unfortunate thing. But that is the end of the fight, because she's stunned, so she can't do anything, because we use the Frostbite skill, because her stun resistance ran out. So that gives me a final score of 1.7 million. It's certainly not the highest score out there, but it certainly does work. It just requires all the summonable units plus Prosper Rimuru, who does not see the light of day very often. Alright, let's cut it down a little bit, make it not quite as whaley. We're going to use the first banner units, so the hero, Velzard, Leon, and then we're going to just sub in a whole bunch of other characters. So the free-to-play Ritas, Blanc, and then Violet. If you have one of the other characters, take Violet out, because we're already getting the magic buff from the hero. But she's another orb changer, she's got a magic buff, very, very substitutable option, but she is going to be on the team for this run at least, because she's old now. People may or may not have her, or they might have different options they want to use instead. Because you can put Prosper Rimuru on here, or you could put Jean, or Rimuru, the new transforming Rimuru if you have him. Like, you could switch this team up by quite a bit. And even if you don't have the masked hero with this team, you could run like Commander Renard. It wouldn't be nearly as good, by all means. But you would still be stacking weakness strike, and you'd be doing ult resistance down stacks on Rain. So, I mean, he could be a passable substitute if you have Commander Renard. We're going to use Warrior's Mind in another clip after this. But this team is going to run, almost the same as what the first team did. It's just much less stress, because it's just going to be much less powerful. And we have 3 orb changers now in Leon, Ritas, and Violet. So we don't have to worry about too much. And you can send ults all day. We don't have any rainbows. We don't have that special ult changing skill to give us extra skill points on the ult orbs. We don't have we do have Frostbite and Stun. So we'll still benefit off of that. But we are missing a lot of power. So this team is not going to do nearly as much as the first team with the full setup plus the Prosper Rimuru. But this is just stacking. And because we're going to still get a lot of ult gauge from the masked hero, you can either choose to use Ritas to just ult swap Leon, or you could just send Leon's ult. And you could kind of just slowly, incrementally get a little bit higher score, because you are sending ults constantly, and you don't have to use the ult swap from Ritas. Like, you can send Leon ults if you want, as long as you make sure that on turn 8 you have the EX ult again, in some way, shape, or form. Like, I don't know how you're going to get that, but you can very easily, for the first, 5 turns, if you have a Leon ult like this, I could just send it, and it would give me another, 100k damage every so often, maybe. And that, any small increase for people who are trying to get an increase, I mean, that's something. Better than using the ult swap every single turn and just never sending it until turn 8, right? We don't have to do that with this team, because we're guaranteed to get ult gauge. Even without orbs for Leon, we're going to get at least 50% from the masked hero. So, let's go ahead and, also we can kind of stack a bit more. We're not as point hungry on this team. And we have Blanc, who can give us the extra 40 points on turn 8, because we're not really going to use her up until that point, because there are no orange orbs to buff. And we don't really need 40 extra skill points on a blue stacking team, at least right now, because all we're doing is orb changing. Unless you're on the Primal Demon team, and then you might need points. But this is not Primal Demon. So we have 5 turns left. I hope you guys don't mind, but I'm going to cut ahead. It is just literally orb changing and sending 6 blues for the next 3 turns. So I'm going to jump into the second to last turn, where we have the Leon EX ult. We've been keeping it with him instead of sending it, but we are sending orbs still. 95k on his orbs, and then his 200% is going to do almost 200k. And this is the final nuke turn, and we have the EX ult. We're going to have enough points here. We're down on points because we're having to send the support ults in between, and we're not getting that skill point increase on those. That's what Jean's skill is doing. It's still enough, though. So, magic buff with Violet, get her out of here, bring Blanc in, use both her buff and the free 40 points, because, why not? And then we'll bring Ritas in, who also has an ult. So, she'll get the buffs, right? 1, 2. It's just that we don't have enough to Frostbite now, which is a detriment because would very much like to enhance some of those debuffs that we're doing. So this run could also be better. We could have left Velzard in the back last turn or something like that. I don't know. But 2.8 million on Velzard, and then Leon does 34 million. It's pretty pathetic. And we got another synergy on his second orb, so excellent. But that is the half meta team. 41.3 million is, of course, not as good as 1.1 billion, but you are missing half of the team. So good luck with that. Alright, so let's take it back a bit, because we know that we can use Warrior's Mind Guy's Orb Change turn 1. It's built for Leon, but it's also built for Guy, so it does work. And Warrior's Mind is an Earth-focused team that gives extra damage against space. It is physical-focused, but it is also crit-focused, so it's not actually truly nerfed. It's just now 2 years old, because it was the 1.5 anniversary meta. So we've got Velzard, we've got the free-to-play Xion, who I do have skill fuse, so she is giving 15% crit damage on every stack instead of 5, so please keep that in mind. Evil Rimuru, Violet, Lumi, and then Guy. Violet is also skill fused, so she is giving a little bit extra damage support with the crit and the ult resistance down, so we have 2 skill fusions here, just in case you need to know and wondering why your damage isn't quite the same. It's because of the skill fusions. But at the end of the day, it is still just a blue stacking team. It is also a bit cheaper, because we don't have a whole bunch of 90-point skills. We only have really 3 characters that are doing any kind of big-time buff at the end of the day, in Lumi, Violet, and Guy. We do have 2 double single-target Earth characters in Rimuru and Guy, so as long as you can get their EX ults, which with this team is very easy, because Rimuru has the ult rush for space and Earth characters, so it's very easy to get all 3 ults, realistically. And if you don't want to bring Xion and you want to bring another kind of support character instead, totally fine. Like, if your Xion isn't skill fused, and you feel like you don't need that orange orb changer, or you want to bring someone else who can orb change and give you a bit more benefit, then Xion can go. Lumi, on turn 8, she gets the crit resistance down and the physical buff, and she's got that gimmick skill, which is not skill fused, so we don't have to worry about that one. But it does give you an extra stack of Velzard to use pretty much whenever you want it, whenever you have 70 points and a Velzard to use to begin with. It is just an extra stack, though, and that's about it at the end of the day. So ideally, you'd be doing as many crit damage stacks as possible on Rimuru and Guy. As many as you can. So 5, 10, 15, 20, or if she's fused, 15, 30, 45, whatever you can get to. That's really going to help out a lot. You are already getting crit damage from Violet, though, so it's not the most important thing in the world to have, because you are just already getting it. If you have access to, like, the new Velzard, and you can bring the Aegis ability onto this team, then I would certainly do that. Or if you're worried about losing an orb changer, you could bring Leon, have 3 Earth characters. Rimuru would still ult rush all 3 of them, and then you'd be getting the EX ult buff as well, and you'd still have an orb changer as well. So you'd have Violet, Guy, and Leon, also a possibility. But here we have Violet, who converts her own orbs, Xion, who does oranges, and then Guy, who does the 2 greens and 1 orange, because I don't have him skill fused. I don't want to skill fuse his orb change. I think it becomes objectively weaker. But we do have a Guy ult. We only have the single ult swap with Evil Rimuru, and I don't want to use that 3 turns in. So we are going to just send the Guy ult and send the Rimuru ult, because we're going to be able to get it back. Rimuru has that alt rush ability where it starts at 20% or something like that, somewhere around there. 50% if he's skill fused, which mine is not. And then every time you use the protector, you get an extra 10% to that rush. So after 8 uses of Velzard, you get just a 100% alt gauge rush for Earth and Space, which can really help you out on turn 7 and turn 6 and turn 7 to get the EX alts that you're going to want for your primary nuking characters. So we have 4 turns left. This is just, again, sending alts. We're going to send the Rimuru Orb because I don't want to send the alt swap yet. And then in the next couple of turns, we can use the alt rush because we'll be pretty much capped out on that very, very soon. But obviously, because this team is so old, it's not doing 1 billion damage. It's not even going to do 40 million damage like the other team. It's going to do not as much. Not as much because it's just not as strong. But it is full of old characters that you may have pulled from the 500 fucking tickets that we got for free. Or you already have them because your account, like you were an older player who played during the 1.5 Annie or somewhere around there and you just recently come back. If this is the only team you have, it certainly does work. It's just not tippity top tier anymore. But we have 3 turns left. Let's go ahead and start alt rushing now. So that gives Guy his alt. That gives Rimuru his EX alt after these orbs are said and done. And that's perfect. Because we still have the next turn to get the extra alt rush here for Guy and Lumi. So we can use the alt rush a second time now. We got to break the barrier. Not a big deal. So alt rush again. Boom. And now we can take 2 characters out and just leave people in. So we'll take Lumi out, we'll use the orb change for Xion and maybe the crit buff as well, depending. Let's alt swap. Thankfully, it hit Guy, which is very, very, very lucky. So we can take Rimuru away as well for Violet after we use a stack, right? No? Okay, we're not going to stack here. So we're just going to bank on the Xion and Guy orb changes, or the Violet and Guy orb changes. Whatever way fits your fancy, whatever's cheaper. But doing this will allow us to give Guy another stack of crit damage from Xion if we so choose to. And then we can take Xion out for Rimuru, give them the Violet buff, and then take Violet out for hopefully Lumi, and then we'll have 3 EX alts, and we'll just use the Lumi buff and the Guy buff at that point. So 373 points. I don't actually think we have enough to use another stack of Xion, unfortunately. But math is hard, right? No, we do. Okay. So we can do that. So, no, don't do that. Alright. There's no way for us to do this to get Rimuru another stack, so we just have to use Xion here again. And then Xion goes away for Rimuru. Boom. Thankfully, everybody has an orb. And then we'll use Violet's buff. Debuff and buff. And then Violet goes away for Lumi, and then we use the Guy and Lumi buff, and then the double stack of Velzard, and then we will nuke and we'll send the Guy orbs, because he's going to do the most damage. And yeah, that's this team's run. So 1 stack, 2 stack, and then we'll go ahead and send it. We'll send Lumi first, because she has an alt effect. I don't remember what it is. It's not very good, but she does 1.3 million, Rimuru 6.2, and Guy 6.2. Now, they are EX Unbound characters, so if you're not skill fused, if you're not EX Unbound, you're going to do slightly less damage, but we only do 15 million there. It's still enough for an S rank, but it's not 1 billion damage. Alright, I wanted to use this team because people got Diablo and they got Rimuru for free. It is a stacking blue meta, technically, team that you can build. And so, the rest of the team is fluid. If you have Guy, you can bring Guy. If you have Leon, you can bring Leon, but it wouldn't really work that well because Rimuru wouldn't buff him. But we're going to use the Diablo we got for free, the Rimuru for free. Hopefully maybe you pulled Guy. And then we got 3 free-to-play characters as orb changers. Xion, Geld, and Gobta. Xion, again, is skill fused, so she's going to be a bit better in her support abilities than normal. But this is a fairly free-to-play friendly team for what is going on right now. The only characters that you won't have are the support slots and maybe Guy. But you can get Geld, Xion, and Gobta from the Flashback shop. Rimuru and Diablo you get for free from that EX Awakening quest. So you just need some kind of single target character, hopefully Earth, to do damage, and then that's pretty much it. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, because if you've watched the other clips, you understand how a blue stacking team works. You make blue orbs, you send ults, you send blue orbs, and then on the final turn you nuke with whoever. This team only has 2 primary buffs, that's Rimuru and Guy, so you don't even need that many points. You just try and get as many blue orbs, try and get as many stacks of Diablo as possible. He's stacking ult resistance down, which is inherently a pretty decent buff. It's just that he doesn't stack points very quickly, because he's only raising your cap by 30 every time you use him instead of 40 or 50 like the new protectors are. So you kind of just gotta wing it. But Rimuru, like literally everyone on this team is an orb changer. Like, you are not short on options to get blue orbs here, and that is the main goal, is to make blue orbs. So we'll use Gobta's skill, we'll use Rimuru's skill. Geld is here also because he can use an orb giveaway skill, where if you have blue orbs, he will give all blues to the character with the highest attack, which should be your nuking Guy or whoever. And so if you find yourself just never getting orbs for Guy, just make a bunch of blue orbs, bring Geld in, use his second skill, and they will all become Guy orbs. So there is a way to force orbs onto a specific character. And we use that actually for Rimuru, because Guy, he's going to get orbs. Like, we're not really worried about that. Rimuru, though, is not going to get as many as I would like, and so we do, on one turn, make a whole bunch of blues, and then feed them all into Rimuru, and then we get his EX ult. So it's very, very nice. Because I think here we take him out. Because I don't want him to get an ult here. We have no one to ult swap, unfortunately, so we kind of have to play around with what we send here. I do want both EX ults for both Rimuru and Guy, just so they're as strong as possible. And Xion giving both of them extra crit damage is nice. Gobta is here because he has the ult swap ability, so right now we can take one of them out, and then ult swap with Guy, and we can have 3 orbs for him, so we take Rimuru away, we use the orb change and the ult swap, and there you go. 6 more blue orbs. Cool. Let's come back. Okay, here's the turn where we feed Rimuru. Actually, no, it's the turn prior to, sorry. Yeah, okay, so it's this turn right here. Guy has his EX ult now. Perfect. Let's get him out of here after a stack of crit damage and orb changing, potentially. Yep, there we go. Guy goes away. We're getting close to the nuke turn, so let's take him out. Let's do the ult swap and the orb change with Xion. And then we're going to feed Rimuru. He already has 4 orbs, which is good, but I want 6. So let's take Gobta away. And let's use Geld's second skill, and they all become Rimuru now. So that is how you can force a character to get their EX ult. But let's go ahead and cut to the nuke. So we've used the physical buff, we've used the crit buff, we've used the ult buff from Guy. We're going to do one more stack of Diablo here after I do something, and then we'll go ahead and nuke with our not very powerful team. But yeah, we've used pretty much everything we need to. So Rimuru ult first, he does 851k. Guy, 3.4, that's cool. We actually hit, I think, a natural Aegis there or something. But yeah, it's not great damage. It's very old characters and mostly free to play. But it is certainly an option for you if you have to go down this route. Oh, but here's the actual score, 50k. Yeah, it's not great. As a final note, I'm not going to show the full team run, but Prosper is another team that is Earth-focused that gets extra damage against space. Technically, it stacks Weakness Strike because of Maribel, and you won't take a lot of damage because of the Super Guard. But Elmesia, Prosper, Rimuru, we used on the first team, and then you probably actually don't need to bring Octagram Lee. Bring somebody else, and they'll help you a bit more. But this is another blue stacking team that doesn't quite work like a blue stacking team, because you're not raising your skill cap. We're always capped at 150, but you do have Elmesia and Rimuru, which actually, for this run, we don't get an Elmesia ult on the nuke turn. So actually, we could be a little bit better. We get a Lumi ult, but it's not great. But we've used the Elmesia buff, we've gotten a couple stacks of Octagram Lumi, and then this Lumi does 1.4 million with the crit. Rieger single target does 897, and then Prosper Rimuru does 7.5. So actually, I mean, okay number. and we have been stacking the entire time for Weakness Strike. We've been orb changing primarily with Lumi, but Prosper is another meta that you can use to get a score if you have access to it or some semblance of it. But those are the teams I have for you for Boss Battle 1. Obviously, there are other units you can use, so if you have a different team that you found that works, please, for the love of God, put it in the comments. Other people can see that and maybe take a hint. But that's it from me. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.